Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Welcome back dear learners to this course on architectural thesis. My name is Dr. Vishal Chettry and I am working as an assistant professor in the Department of Architecture, Planning and Design at IIT BHU Varanasi. Today in this particular presentation we will focus on the course summary because it is the very last presentation of this particular course, and we will try to summarize what all we have learned in this entire course and what were the key learnings out of every sections or every module of the entire presentations. So this is the content for the presentation. We will start with the recap of what was learnt in the previous presentation, then I will showcase you the details about architectural thesis, the importance of architectural thesis, and then how can we prepare the framework for architectural thesis, data collections, case studies and site analysis, key learnings from this chapter, then related to concept, site plan and floor plan. Thereafter we will also discuss on how to prepare elevation section, site elevation, site section and other remaining details. What are key important aspects that has to be followed when it comes to visual communication, report writing for architectural thesis, what are important things that has to be followed when you start writing an architectural thesis, what are the common mistakes that is found and how do we avoid them, and what is the way to start the report writing process. That will be covered along with time management, well-being, presentation and the journey that is beyond the architectural thesis. So that also will be focused. So at the end we will try to conclude the learning of the topics that were covered in this presentation, and some wrap-up activities will be shared with you. So to give you a recap of what we have covered in the previous presentation, it was related to an understanding of the career trajectories that are possible after your B.Arch course is over, that is after the culmination of your thesis, because that is the very last course that you take in your architectural curriculum, and then possibly the last exam that will be there for your within the architectural B.Arch course. So after that, how you should prepare yourself for the future that is lying ahead, so that was discussed. So we also understood the importance of building a strong portfolio and presentation skills, exploring different career pathways, curating thesis work for professional use, as well as making portfolio for jobs, for higher studies, for competitions, networking and showcasing work. How can we do all this after your B.Arch is over? That was also emphasized, and then always try to the focus was on developing some kind of mindset that helps you sustain the passion and support the transition with your academia, from academia to the practice, if you are continuing professional practice after your architectural B.Arch course. So these things were discussed and elaborated during the previous presentation. But now that we are focusing on the summary of what we have covered in this entire 8 weeks of course, so to give you a glimpse of what we started with the purpose, to understand about the architectural thesis. We understood the aim, scope and relevance of architectural thesis as a culmination of academic learning and the creative exploration, because this is that final product in your entire B.Arch course which showcases the overall learning of B.Arch during the B.Arch course. So whatever different subjects were taught to you, be it building construction, architectural design, or maybe related to services, maybe related to other subjects like landscaping, or maybe related to estimation and costing and other thing, and structures also in fact. So what were the learnings from these different subjects, and how have you showcased that learning that whether you have learned them if correctly or not, that is actually judged through your architectural thesis work. So this is why it holds an immense importance in your entire BR course. So the thesis journey and ethics has to be followed. Familiarize yourself with the key milestones within the architectural thesis, deliverable and important role of supervisors and mentor, uphold the ethical standards throughout the architectural research, and also understand different research approaches that are possible in your literature review, because to come up with strong ideas and come up with a very strong design decision, your background has to be that much intensive. So it is only possible if you have done rigorous research regarding the topic. So this is why research approaches has to be understood, and there was enough of emphasis in my previous presentation on this aspect, where you can go back and then learn about this topic and then familiarize yourself regarding the research approaches for architectural theses. Then we also emphasized on literature review, the process of conducting literature review that was explained. Also how to identify the gaps and synthesize knowledge from literature review through different sources. Literature review may be based on the research papers. It may be related to some books that are relevant for the topic that you have selected. It also may include the database, the published thesis of a previous batch. You can refer that and then also understand the process. So use research databases, keywords and reference management, because when you write, when you start writing architectural thesis report, your these referencing and intake citation is also very important to understand. So how can we follow a correct protocol of writing report writing? So that was emphasized in the earlier presentations. So topic selection, so choose thesis topic based on current architectural challenges, societal needs and research gaps that you could derive from your literature review. So based on the statistics, based on recent policy changes, so there are certain upcoming bill typology. So if you have selected that, so support that with the evidences that you have collected. So this actually is the stage which sets the foundation for your focused, rigorous and relevant architectural thesis that can sustain throughout this 4.5 months and till you are well settled, because wherever you go you will always be asked about your architectural thesis, what have you done and how have you accomplished your work in that thesis. Then next is to prepare the framework for thesis. So thesis framework, if you prepare, it helps you define the clear themes, parameters and components that will guide you through the entire thesis work. It helps you establish a realistic timeline and methodology for research and design phases. The problem statements and objectives has to be framed as per the literature review that you have completed. So clearly define the issues and make your aim and objectives addressing those gaps. Then the methodology that you have adopted, so detailed data collection methods, sampling strategies and participant selection has to be emphasized. Develop research instruments like questionnaires and interview guides. How to prepare this questionnaire and interview questions are well discussed in the previous presentation. You can refer that and then prepare questionnaire for your data collection, because at times user centric information is also very important while taking certain design decision in your architectural thesis. So this is where it helps you. Then prepare the design program, that is integrate research findings with design intent and user needs. So formulate a design program that sets spatial and the functional criteria. So then thereafter you have to now structure the thesis, that is organize the content of your thesis, that what is the order of information. Then also think of the deliverables. So what are the deliverables that will come up from your thesis? It may be sheets, report, and then the entire other set of works like physical model, or maybe the walkthroughs or simulation that you have prepared. This architectural thesis framework is essential for guiding research and design efforts by defining clear themes and methodologies, as well as to achieve your work within the timeline that is set by your institute. Then next stage is related to data collection, case studies and site analysis. For data collection, use varied methods like surveys, interviews, observations, archival and spatial analysis. Collect essential data like anthropogenic factors, space requirements, building codes and land use restrictions, because all this information related to the site that you have selected will help you, come up with some detailed nuances about your project. So what is the total built up area, what is the total height that you can achieve in your project, how much is the ground coverage that is allowed, what is the total permissible built up area, how much are you able to build up, whether you are justifying the FSI that is there in the site, or whether are you to justify the real estate value of the site or not. So all that can be estimated on how well have you read the building codes and integrated in your design. Also regarding safety and structural stability, refer to the National Building Code 2016 and the development control rules of your respective states. So follow those guidelines and incorporate those to justify the safety and structural stability. Then also do detailed case studies. So also mention the criteria that you have used to select the case studies, because if you abruptly mention, okay, you have selected this 4 different types of case studies, but what were the criteria? So if you could explain that, then there is a well thought approach behind selecting the case study, and then the inferences that you could draw from the case studies will be relevant in that scenario. Thereafter, site selection and analysis. Also in the same case, if it is a real site project, then I think site selection doesn't need justification. But if it is a hypothetical site for a real life project, or it may be a hypothetical project or hypothetical site, so it requires some justification. So try to work on those aspects. Look for land use, look for government land that is available, and then accordingly select the land for the project. So select at least 2-3 options and justify why among these options the one that you selected stands out to be the best for the project. Synthesize and concept development. So synthesize findings from data collection, case studies, site analysis, and you will gradually you will be able to get closer to the concept that you have developed for your project. So this framework helps you establish a robust foundation for research driven architectural design solution for your thesis. Next is the stage for developing the concept, then site plan and floor plan. So to develop the concept, you need clear ideas. So that is only possible if you have done rigorous literature review, which may include case study analysis, may include documentation, also can include your interviews of stakeholders as well as of the users. Then is the site planning. So based on that, try to create, if it is a scattered planning topic, so then try to tentatively think of circulation within the site and where are you going to place different blocks. So once that is over, then at later stage you can detail out the site planning, but at initial stage the orientation of the building, the blocks as well as the movement, that is the pedestrian and vehicular movement, have to be discussed and finalized, because that will help you decide how to orient the blocks within the site and then place effectively in the site. Then next comes the floor plan. Then for individual blocks, try to detail out the floor plans based on the concept that you have initially thought for the project. Then is the design development. So evolve schematic ideas into the detailed plans, collaborate and refine material system and the spatial details for your project. So then comes the presentation and communication, integrate sketches, diagrams and text to clearly convey the design progression. So this framework guides architectural thesis design from initial concept to the detailed documentation stage, where you could show their technical ability and the accuracy with which you will showcase your design idea to the juror. Next stage is the preparation of elevation section, also which includes site elevation and site section and other details for the project. So elevation is the exterior building facade, so how that responds to that particular climatic zone or to that particular site or the culture, whether it is in accordance to that, and all these things have to be explained through the elevation. and follow the drawing conventions for windows, doors and textures to ensure clarity in your designs. Through section we understand the spatial relationship, the structural elements that you have incorporated in the design, so all this will be clear. Also you can showcase the details like furniture, circulation, light and ventilation to explain them their functionality in your project. Then next is the site elevation and section. So depicting the building context with terrain helps you justify the location of that block in that particular place. So also show levels, slopes, grading and other landscape features if they are present. Details like provide the scale, technical drawings of key building elements that you have included. For example, if you have a very fancy or if there is some kind of parametric architectural design in your submission, so possibly those can be shown how that will be executed if it is a real life project. So show some technical details related to construction for your project, so that will enhance the detail of your work. Also show some building services layout for your project, so that the water supply, drainage and fire emergency exits, so all these are to be explained in your submission, so that your architectural thesis is a full package of what you have learned in your entire architectural course. Then also the other thing, after you have completed all the basic deliverable, the thing to understand is about visual communication. So how have you composed your sheet? So always think of hierarchy, balance, alignment and rhythm, the same design principles that were taught to you in your very first years. So that is still applicable at your final year submission also, because no matter how much hard work you do for preparing floor plans and all those renderings and all, but if they are not well composed in your sheet, then you will not be able to develop interest in the juror to look into your work. So that is also very important. Figures, charts and tests, so use them judiciously, do not overcrowd information in your sheet. So if few aspects are very clear with sheet, so don't try to write the same content in text in your sheet, because you have limited number of space, so use them judiciously. Use physical models to explain the details of your project to the examiner. 3D views and renders, if you have these things, so try to incorporate that in your submission. So walkthroughs and final presentation. Walkthroughs are essential to explain the in and out of your of the project. So that is also essential, and try to plan and script the animated walkthroughs to immerse viewers in the design. Use appropriate tools and softwares to showcase the detail. Integrate walkthroughs effectively into jury presentation. So you have to be well prepared, because you are given a fixed amount of time, and just try to utilize the time within the allotted time for showcasing the walkthroughs also, and don't bring very don't try to make very long walkthroughs. I mean, it has to be of limited time, either 1 or 2 minutes, not more than that. Then is the stage of your report writing and showcasing the report to the examiner. So structure your thesis report accordingly as being taught. It should be in particular order, starting with abstract, then the introduction, literature review, methodology, case studies, site analysis, design development with all the details, then the conclusion and references at the end. And how to write these key sections, so there is a detailed presentation on these aspects, so try to go look back into those presentation and start understanding on how to start writing these different sections for your thesis report. Thereafter, design documentation, which includes conceptual diagrams, design iterations and detailed process that are to be explained clearly to support the argument. So proper citation and references are to be added so that you maintain academic integrity. Visual and verbal integration is necessary during your presentation. So the final guidance regarding the thesis is about time management, well-being, presentation, as well as preparing you for your career, that is after your DR. So time management and well-being, you have to prepare milestone, and always prepare a timetable, daily as well as weekly timetable for this architectural thesis, because you don't realize how quickly time goes for your in this entire thesis semester, because along with thesis you will have 2-3 other subjects also to complete. So it is not possible to devote the entire semester fully for architectural thesis. So you have to understand when are the submissions and exams for the other subjects scheduled, and then accordingly try to chalk out a few hours daily for your thesis. It is not possible that just you devote 1 or 2 days just before your thesis and you will clear the subject, because it's a progressive evaluation. There are certain number of internal reviews that you have to clear, and then you are allowed to appear in the end semester review only if you have cleared these internal reviews. So common challenges and overcoming those challenges are discussed in the previous presentation. So anticipate issues such as creative block, technical difficulties, or scope related to the scope of the project. So there may be still confusion. So try to work on the ideas that were suggested. So develop resilience and problem solving skills to stay on track and meet the submission requirements. Do the presentation and final defense. So prepare concise, visual and clear narratives. Arrive on the venue before time and see the facilities that is there, and accordingly adjust your presentation to that setting. Post thesis preparation. So develop a professional portfolio. Also incorporate the suggestion from the review from the examiners during the review, and incorporate the portfolio for different settings. For example, portfolio for a job opportunity may be something which include practical aspects and practical insights has to be emphasized, and if it is for higher studies, the process has to be documented, and other aspects related to academia maybe you may highlight that in your portfolio. So career pathways, understand that through after architecture, it's not just the architectural practice that is there with you. Based on your interest and your inclination to different related field, you can explore those career accordingly. So networking and showcasing is one of the important career opportunity in this case, because you leverage through exhibition, you can explore these things, conferences and digital platform to show or showcase your work at different platforms. So to conclude this presentation, the architectural thesis integrates research, design and communication into a cohesive project, establish a clear thesis framework, conduct a thorough data collections and do a detailed case studies and site analysis, because these will create bring something interesting to your project, because as explained, each site has its own story attached to it. So accordingly, that particular aspect will help you develop some very interesting design idea for a project. So develop concept through detailed site plans and to develop the detailed floor plans or elevation, use effective visual communication, craft a well structured report, balance creativity, technical accuracy and adherence to building standards, manage time wisely and prioritize your well-being, because that also has to be focused. It should not just be work throughout the architectural thesis. Your health is also a priority. Prepare a professional presentation. The thesis finalizes the ability to critically analyze, design and communicate you as an architect. So this is what the intention of the thesis is. So with all this understanding, I hope you will be able to succeed in your architectural thesis, and you are well prepared for the life that is there after your BR course. So overall, this learning, I hope it is very much useful for you, and this course will benefit the students who have learned, who are preparing themselves or preparing for the upcoming architectural thesis, or are into this course or have enrolled just now for architectural thesis in their, either it may be 9th or 10th depending on the the course syllabus of your respective institutes. And also suggest the course to your friends who you think may need assistance in architectural thesis or are lacking in the progress of architectural thesis. So you may refer some of the important presentations to them, and then this may help them develop some ideas or may overcome the blocks in their mind. So with this, I'd like to conclude my the last presentation for this particular topic, and I hope the entire presentation that was showcased to you through this entire 8 weeks are very much helpful and beneficial for the architectural thesis course. So thank you for your patience listening, and those students who have continued with me along this 8 weeks of journey, I am very much thankful to them that they find this course very useful, and also send me your feedback, give me your feedback about the course, what all can I improve in this course, and what different aspects that you think may have missed in the presentation, and also along with few things that you have liked in the presentation, so that I am aware of these aspects and I will incorporate that in the future revisions if I incorporate any revision. So thank you again for your patience listening and for joining this course. So these are some wrap up activities that you can complete after this presentation is over, and with this I'd like to conclude.